Hello, and welcome to the Hello You Show, where we talk about big dreams and taking real action. Through transformative stories, a bit of neuroscience, and real conversations, this show is here to help you explore creating your next level life with authenticity and passion. I'm Jessica Rice, a design techie and former engineering leader turned vision evolution coach on a mission to help other women rise up and lead a life of purpose. So get cozy and say hello again to the real you. Hello, welcome back to the Hello You Show. My name is Jessica Rice, and I am your host. Today, we have a really special guest joining us. I'm so excited to finally have him on our show, Andrew Stoute. He is the host of a very well-known podcast, Let's Be Diverse, and is a highly motivated and dynamic human resources professional who is versatile in diversity and inclusion. Andrew is fueled by his passion for the belief that every moment is an opportunity for communication. He leads with empathy and authenticity, which allows him to bring his unique experience into his collaborations with others, which I can testify for. And he also believes that any strength can become a weakness if not used properly. Thank you so much for joining us today, Andrew. I'm so excited to have you on the show with us.
I am excited to be here and honored that you took the time to have me on here today.
Oh, my pleasure. So for those of us who don't know, where are you joining us from?
So right now I am in Saskatchewan, Canada. So it's the western part of Canada. So for those who don't know Canada very well, there's the western part, which is Saskatchewan, Calgary, Vancouver, Edmonton, the eastern part, which is Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and then there's the east coast, which is Halifax, Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick.
How's the weather up there?
I would say a little snowy. I should say a little snowy. I'd say a lot snowy. We had quite a bit of snow last week. There was actually one day that I probably shoveled about 5 times during the day. So yeah, it was just one of those days that it just kept coming down, and you wanted to kind of work at it so that you didn't have a whole bunch to get rid of, but the wind kicked in. So of course, once the wind kicks in, then it starts blowing it all over the place. So it becomes hard. So other than that, things are good. We're enjoying life, and enjoying the times, and we take things day by day and enjoy the day and work on to the next one.
Well, I haven't been to Canada outside of as a pit stop, but everything I see is beautiful. It's definitely on my bucket list to get there sometime, and maybe not so much snow, because as Californians, we're kind of we're a little sissy about that.
If I do have a recommendation, I would definitely, Vancouver is beautiful, and also the East Coast is just absolutely gorgeous. Those are probably 2 of my favorite places anyways. So.
Well, I will add that to the list. My son and I have been looking at different places in Canada. I'm like, we could easily go there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I know that you have this incredible background in HR, but I would love if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you enjoy doing in terms of helping people.
So my story, like I said, I was born and raised in Montreal, and I moved out west in the western part of Canada in 2009. And I've always been someone who enjoys working with people and dealing with people. So all throughout my jobs, every job that I had, I delved in quite a bit in the HR realm, whether it was recruitment, whether it was, looking through resumes, sifting through resumes, helping with interviews. I did a lot of training and development. So I worked 11 years with a company, and I was in charge of training all the new salespeople coming in. So I delved into it quite a bit. And then I just always had that passion of, like I said, of dealing with people. And I thought, well, why not get into it or have, the paperwork to back it up, and then we can kind of move into it a little bit better or have a better opportunity to do so. So in 2017, I went back to school after a number of years and I took a human resources certificate, and I graduated with it in 2020. And then I just kind of tried to figure out what I wanted to do. And I delved a little bit in benefits, and it just wasn't for me. It was very much um, accounting based for me, balancing Excel sheets and stuff. So that's just not for me. And I wasn't dealing with people. So it was really not my forte. So I decided, okay, well, how do I get myself out there? How do I tell people about myself? How do I talk about myself? How do I story tell? So the podcast became a reality. I did a lot of research and figuring out how I wanted to do it, what style I wanted, and then it'll be 2 years this coming February that we've been running it and putting out episodes. So and I just enjoy it. The first one was nerve wracking, I will admit, but it's gotten it's gotten a lot better as time has gone on, and now I don't really consider it a job. I consider it something fun and engaging because I get to have conversations with people about the things I love.
Mhm. Well, you are incredibly gifted at that. I know with the conversations that we've had and getting to know each other online, you are definitely a connector of people.
Mhm.
But I also have so many questions because I've come from a background in tech and working in corporate. Not everyone in HR is interested in sharing on a broader audience the things that they do, the passions that they have in relation to working with others. What was it that inspired you to start a podcast?
So I wanted to have something that I could talk about. I felt there was a lot of things in HR and leadership that were just not being talked about, and I felt were super important. And yes, you're doing the employee engagements and the processes and all that. You're doing all these conversations, but I felt like stuff like mindfulness and well-being were not talked about, and they were super important. And so I felt, why not have those conversations, and why not be the one to have those conversations, and that so people can kind of look and say, I don't know how he's going to spin that, but now that I see how he spun it, it's super interesting, and what a great conversation it was. So that was kind of what I wanted to create, and I feel like I was able to do that.
Hmm. Well, I think it's really fantastic that you are bringing a voice to, I think, something that's otherwise lesser known. I think for the most part, we understand what HR's role is sometimes when we're in corporate, but we don't fully appreciate and value
Well,
our HR representatives nearly enough. And I don't think I even fully recognized that even until I moved into management, just how pivotal they are to the entire organization and the operation of everything.
for sure.
What do you feel like is some of the greatest misconceptions that people have in relation to human resources in general?
Well, I would say if you're an employee, I would say that a lot of employees and experiences and the conversations that I've had lately is, or in the last year or so, is that people don't feel that HR is for them. They feel that it's for the organization. Uh, and HR is actually really for you. They're there to develop and processes that's going to make life easier, and I like to call it a safe work environment. So that's what they're there for, to to put together a safe work environment for individuals so that they don't have to worry on a Monday morning and say, "Hey, oh my god, I got to go to that place tomorrow." We want them to be excited about going to work and saying, "Yeah, I get to go do this, and I get to do that, and I get to see so and so, and I get to have this meeting with so and so, and I get to work on this project." That's the excitement that we want to create, because then they're going to stick around longer, or they're going to want to stick around longer with the organization. They see a future with the organization. So that's super important.
Mhm. I think that's a really good point to bring up, especially because when we're thinking about human resource groups that are starting to take place in corporations and like your interests in diversity and inclusion and how, ways that we can start helping to raise the voice and authenticity of everyone who's a part of the organization. What is it that you feel inspires you the most in that role?
That I get to help people. I feel like we have to figure out when we are listening to help somebody out or listening with pause to just so that they need to, they may need to vent or they need to get stuff off their chest and, or they're having a rough day. And I think we need to figure that out. So, well, that's what I enjoy is helping somebody out or listening to somebody, or for that matter, seeing somebody progress and grow within the organization is huge. And who doesn't want to have somebody underneath them who progresses throughout the company, and you could say, hey, I've had somebody under me. I've had them under me, and now look where they are. I mean, I'll use my podcast as an example. I've had guests who've never done a podcast before, and they've gone on to do other podcasts after because they weren't sure how to do it. So, or what would happen through it. So coming on mine, then they got a little bit, got easier for them and they felt more comfortable. Now a couple of them are speaking a lot more. They're doing a lot more videos. So, I look at them and I'm not looking to get praise or whatever, but it makes me feel good to see them progress throughout their careers.
Well, I think it's amazing that that's something that's very, that's passionate for you and that you care so deeply about. And if we could go back just a little bit, I'm also curious, what specifically about working with people? You mentioned that you kind of went back to school. This was something that you were pursuing later. What connected the dots for you in relation to that, or is there something deeper?
So I'll tell you a little story. So when I realized, I knew that HR and leadership was something that I really enjoyed. It was conversations that I was enjoying having with people. And when I was talking with somebody who had the same interests in those topics, I felt like I could talk with them for a long period of time. So that's how I felt. And that's, you're a prime example. When we first talked, that was how I felt with you, is that I probably could have talked with you for a couple more hours because of, the conversation was so engaging. So when I realized that it was something for me was when I first, I wasn't someone who was the greatest in school. I'll admit it here. I'll be vulnerable today. And when I went back to school, I kind of wondered, how am I going to do? Because I wasn't that great in school. So my first class that I was taking, I was working and I would do study in the evenings and on the weekends. So my first class, I got my textbook, I was reading it. And many times my wife would go to sleep in the evening and I'd say, okay, I'll be up in a bit. And then sure as hell, I would say, 12:30, 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning. Many times she would be up and she'd call me from upstairs and say, hey, are you coming to bed? It's 1:30 in the morning. And I'd look at the clock on my laptop and I'd go, oh my God, it is, it's 1:30. I should really get to bed because I got to get up at 6 for work. So it happened a few times. And what was keeping me up was reading those textbooks. And I never would have thought a textbook would keep me up so long reading it, but just reading all those things and interest was interesting to me. Stuff that I knew or was great. And then there's things that I never really thought of, or ways of looking at things was so different to me. So it was interesting to me. And that's what caught my attention. And then I was so like enthralled with it that's why I stayed up. And then I would go to sleep and I would, or go upstairs and I would say, hey, sorry I keep you up. And then I'd start telling her like all about all the stuff that I was learning. And she would say to me, okay, well, I love that you're so interested in this stuff. And, I'm so happy that you're enjoying it. Can we talk about it in the morning? Cause we got to both get up for work. And then that's when I kind of like, okay, you're right. Let's do that. So, but you want to share that that knowledge with with somebody that you love and care about. And that she was the first person that I wanted to share what I learned. So I would say that was probably the first indications that, like, okay, this is something that really is of interest to me.
Mm. Well, I understand when we start diving into something and we're having kind of these aha moments about something, it's shifting the way we're thinking.
Right.
That all of a sudden it feels like this whole new world is opening up for us. What do you feel was specific to that? What was the shift that was happening for you that you were reading this material and thinking, wow, I never looked at it in this way before?
Well, I would say the word that came to me while I was studying was assumption. So I would always assume things was happening, and I was always a very visual person, and I was always interested in leadership HR. I read a lot of articles, listened to a lot of shows and stuff. So I was always interested in it. And then I would kind of see stuff and it would kind of make me think, well, okay, if I was in this position, what would I do? If I was in this situation, what would I do? And then reading the textbooks, it made me think, like, okay, well, I was assuming these situations. Maybe I wasn't correct in what was going on in the situation. So I can't really say how I would deal with it because I don't know. I'm not privy to the conversation. So I can't give my insights or thoughts on it. So I would say the word assumption was something that really was a revelation for me.
Mhm. I think that's such a really incredible point because, from a coaching perspective, that's the very thing that we're also challenging ourselves with and challenging our clients with as well. So I think it goes without saying, like, that's the biggest piece sometimes that we all have these assumptions
Mm-hmm.
and it's really thinking about it differently and wondering, what I'm thinking correct? And what are the things that I need to do to change maybe my associations or assumptions maybe toward another individual as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm. So when you moved into HR, what was you said we went into benefits first, you recognized that that really wasn't for you. So when you found was it a process to really find what you were looking for, or was that really just kind of like the stepping stone in?
Well, I thought it was going to be a stepping stone. I thought, the department was big that I got into. So I thought, okay, well, I'll start off here and then I'll move, I'll try to move towards this and move towards that. And I thought that's how it went. But again, there's that assumption part. And I was totally wrong. So, yeah, so I moved on and I realized as I was doing it what I really enjoyed, which was because I wasn't talking with any employees or what have you, unless they called me for information on benefits or disability or whatever. So I wasn't really privy to that information. So other than that, so I was kind of like, okay, well, this is not for me because they're only calling me for that stuff. And but I wasn't I wasn't engaging with them. I wasn't, how's everything going or what's happening in that. So I kind of started working a lot with people, and I kind of saw a need for people to help them because there was a lot of people that I saw that were stuck, that felt that they were stuck. They felt that they were in a work situation or a work environment that they just were not happy in.
Mm.
So I found myself working with people on the side, uh, talking to them and guiding them and letting them know that there's other options to just going on a website and applying for a job. There's other ways that we can find work. And one of the things that I firmly believe in is rapport building. I feel like building rapport and talking to people and making connections with people is huge. And so that's what I did. I started connecting with people, and it's got me a lot of stuff to do and a lot of side things that I've been able to do on the side. So I've actually learned a lot of stuff on my own as well, not just from my schooling, but also on my own doing stuff on the side. And so that's what I've been kind of doing and for the last last little bit, and I've really enjoyed it.
Mm. So it sounds like I'm hearing in here too is that people don't always understand how best to leverage or utilize the people that are there in HR, how they can help them and how they could benefit them. I think that, oftentimes the association that I've heard is, it's kind of fear-based, like, oh no, like we don't want to go there, they're going to find out, or we want to expose ourselves in any kind of
Right.
type of way.
Right.
You're saying sounds the opposite.
Mm-hmm. It certainly is. And I feel like people are also afraid to ask for help too, is the other thing, is that, they feel like, oh, I'm stuck, I'm in this situation, or I don't know how to handle this situation, but they don't put it, they're afraid to go and ask, because then if they're asking, it means that they don't know. When in reality, you actually look a lot more professional by asking for help, rather than coming out and saying something that you actually don't know and you're just saying it. You look so much more reputable by asking questions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what would be some advice that you would then give to people to get to know the people within their HR group?
I definitely would say to get to know people, to have conversations with people, and I'd say support each other. I would say be there for each other. I mean, it's not a competition. We're not fighting against each other, especially if you're on a team and you're working on a project. Work together. I always believe that, when we work together, we can accomplish anything. And I really feel very strongly on that. When, who's, that's why we have 10 fingers, right? If we only had one finger, then we would have a lot more trouble doing a lot of things that we do on a regular basis. But we have 10 fingers, so that allows us to do a lot more things than if we only had one.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good point. And I love this conversation because I think that it's something that one, we don't really oftentimes have. We don't really think about how we best get to know the people who are there to help us. And I've also been seeing, HR has really expanded from what we used to consider, like you mentioned, benefits or just kind of employee onboarding or managing conflict, to leadership development and training programs and wellness and inclusivity and all of these different aspects of that. Where do you see all of this heading in the future?
So I do see it continuing to go in the process of the fact that we're both understanding what's important. So I feel like candidates and employees or individual contributors are understanding what's important to them more and more. And I feel that companies are starting to, I think we have a long way to go, but I feel like companies are understanding what's important to individuals, and what can we do to help them, right? So yeah.
Mhm. Well, I love that you're mentioning that because I think it sounds like that's a key part too, is a company is understanding how to best leverage maybe HR
Right.
and really helping to facilitate maybe those ERG groups and things that are starting to take place to support uh, underrepresented groups within the company.
Absolutely. I think like I said, we have to find out we have to figure out what's important. So, yes, we want to put food on the table. We have bills to pay. We have to feed our children. We have to clothe our children. We got to pay for activities in school and stuff. We get that. But we also have to understand what's important to the individual computers and individual contributors, or our team, and our people on our team. And things that are important to our team is collaborating, rapport building, uh, good processes, creating a safe work environment, having processes that are put in place so that people, again, want to come to work and they don't feel like they hate going to. I mean, we never want anybody to hate going to their job. We want somebody to wake up in the morning, especially on a Monday, and saying, okay, this is what I got this week, like I was saying earlier, and just be excited about it, right? So that creates more engagement, and people want to see a future with the company. And if they don't see it, then there's lots of other companies that they can check out. So if you're not going to do it, somebody else is going to show them that they're part of their team and part of their family, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and as you're talking about this, there's this common topic that tends to come up in relation to DEI and box checking. And I'm curious what your thoughts are around some of that.
Sure. Well, and when you're saying box, like what do you like when you mean saying box checking? What are you meaning by that?
Well, sometimes I hear from different individuals saying, well, yes, we have these things in place, but I feel like the companies really they put it in place just to tick a box, but they're not really interested in what
I
it
see.
is that I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if you're going to put a process in place, uh, I was talking with somebody about this just this past week, and they were saying that their company was starting a new program, wellness program, and they had a big meeting and they put it into place, or they were going to put it into place. And they had this meeting like 6 months ago to make this announcement, and they haven't heard anything about it. So she said she was talking with a coworker, and the coworker asked her, like, hey, have you heard anything about that wellness program that we met about 6 weeks ago, or 6 months ago, I should say? And the coworker said no, I haven't heard anything. So, they just basically, I don't know if I don't want to assume, I don't know if they put it into place just to, or just said it that this is what was going to be, and then something happened and they couldn't do it, or they just said it to, just make the employees feel like something was coming and put them and make them feel more comfortable. I don't know. But all I can say is that if you're going to put something in place, then I would say do it. And if it's longer than 6 months, then at least be consistent with everybody and tell them what's going on. So obviously there's certain things that you can't say because of confidentiality, but there's certain things that you can tell them. So just be real and honest with them and tell them, we know that there's a delay in this. It's still going. We know that there's a delay. Here's what we can tell you, and then tell them, and then say, we will give you a further update on it, in the next little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at least letting them know something is happening, right? It's almost like when you would, it's like if you were to contact me, Jessica, and ask me a question, and I would say, listen, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to call around, I'm going to find out about it. And then there's a week later passes and I still didn't get back to you. Well, then you're going to wonder, like, hey, I asked Andrew that question about a week ago and he hasn't gotten back to me. So if I got back to you 2-3 days later and said, listen, Jessica, I just want to let you know I haven't heard I got my answer, but I will get back to you as soon as I can. I just didn't want to leave you hanging or make you think that I forgot about your question. So what that does is it actually lets you know that, hey, Andrew still cares. Mm-hmm. He's still looking into it, and it's still in his mind, and he's going to get back to me when he has a further answer to it. If I don't get back to you, well, then you're going to wonder, like, well, what happened to him? Did he forget? Was my question not important enough for him to get back to me? So there's a difference there.
Well, it's funny, as you're saying all of this, it just comes down to, number one is communication. Mm. And you are such a master of building rapport and leadership. I mean, I think that there's these things that sometimes just seem obvious, mm-hmm. and yet it's not obvious to so many because we don't do it, or we hide, or we, for whatever reason, or we just allow things to get busy maybe. But
right.
It's really just a matter of demonstrating that we care and communicating and continually reaching out, which comes back to that rapport building piece that I think you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there could be I've worked in a lot of organizations where there was a lot of closed doors with all the, the big bosses. There's a lot of closed doors, and you knew something was happening, but there was always closed doors, but nobody would say anything. So you just wonder. So like I said, why not just come out and say what you can,
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like I said earlier, if you say, here's what I can tell you. People will understand that. They know that there's confidentiality. There's certain things that you can't say, but at
Mhm.
least tell me something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the know, like, trust factor, I think, in any situation.
For sure. For sure.
Which then brings me to this too, because our conversations have always been so wonderful, and we didn't know each other until we met online through LinkedIn. And, I have several clients sometimes where it's like, okay, how do we network in a different way? How do we find roles like you were talking about
Yeah.
earlier?
Yeah.
And when I mention sometimes networking or reaching out, you can see the fear. Like it's paralyzing to think about, or I don't want to bother people, or I worry about
Right.
being, people being too busy, or all of the different justifications that we have. What would you say to that? What would be a tip that you would provide someone?
So the one thing that I would say is, and I felt like that too, Jessica, when I first started reaching out to people, I was in a mindset of exactly like your clients who didn't want to reach out. They were shy, apprehensive, not, wondering, okay, are they gonna, are they gonna be okay hearing from me? Maybe they're too busy. So in the mindset that I have now is that if you're reaching out to people, they're gonna get back to you when they have, if they can't get back to you right that second, they're gonna get back to you when they have a moment. So that's the first thing. The other thing that I would say is that I would probably say, and I was telling this to somebody the other day who is actually looking to try to get out there a little bit more. I said to them, take 5 people a day, just 5, and send them, either connect with them, or if it's a connection of yours, send a message, and just 5. And I think if you do that, then it will give you more confidence to connect with more people, because 5 is not a big number. It's pretty simple, and it would take you zero time to say hello to 5 people.
Mhm.
And like I said, if you do that, then that'll build your rapport with the individual. It will build yourself and your network, and then it will grow your community. And you have a bigger community of people that you can reach out to or connect with whenever you need something. If I have a question and I don't know, I have people that I can reach out to ask them the question. If I have a leadership question, I sure as heck I know that I can reach out to you, Jessica, and I can ask. If I don't have the answer, I will definitely reach out to you and ask you. I know you'll get back to me if you're busy, or if you're with a client, I know you'll get back to me. If I have a whatever type of question I have, I can reach out to them, and I know that they're going to get back to me and answer my question.
Mhm.
And it's so rewarding when you have that, because uh, the thing that I felt when I first started was that I kind of felt like I was on my own in this battle. And now I don't. I don't
Mhm.
feel that I'm by myself at all. I feel I have a growing a strong network, and I feel like I can only be a winner by doing so and continuing to.
Mm. Well, I love that whole message in the sense that, you're building true connections. You're building a true network
Yeah,
and foundation for yourself.
right.
And I think it's challenging when we're so used to these very traditional methods of quote unquote networking or getting to know people or going to conferences, which are all great.
Hmm.
But it's just, it's simple. You just put yourself out there. It doesn't have to be as complicated, I think, as we build up in our mind
Hmm.
to just, say hello and make a new friend,
Yeah,
essentially, and go from there.
yeah. You never. I mean, I won't lie. Not everybody's going to want to engage. So I'll put that out there. Not everybody's going to be want to engage. Not everyone's going to want to have a conversation, and that's okay.
Yes.
But there's millions and millions of people who will, and you will find those people who will be willing to engage and be willing to grow and build rapport with you and work with you and collaborate with you, or whatever you're looking to do. They're willing to do that. So it's just a matter of doing that. I mean, I'll give an example. When I first started my podcast, the first 10 people that I asked to come on as a guest said no. Sorry, I'm not interested. Thanks, for asking. So I thought to myself, well, what am I doing here? Like, maybe this is something that's not viable. Maybe this is something that's not worth putting my energy into.
Mm.
And then I thought to myself, well, no, it's pretty much a numbers game. So maybe the first 10 people are going to say or saying no to you. But then as you go, there's going to be somebody that's going to say yes. So I just kind of had this mantra that I've kind of used and since then, which is I'm not afraid to say the word no or hear the word no.
Mm.
So by not being afraid, that means that I'm not afraid to ask, right? Because the worst thing that someone's going to tell me is no, sorry, I'm not interested.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. You're not insulted. You just move on. So I think that's kind of motivated me and kept me going. And I sure as heck get a lot more yeses than nos now. And a lot of those nos turned into yeses later on. So it was just a matter of, maybe it was just, we can't assume, maybe it just wasn't a matter, didn't work for them. Maybe they were busy. Maybe they had a lot of stuff going on. Who knows what it was, but a lot of them turned around and contacted me again. So,
Well, I was going to say, it's like going back to what you were first talking about as assumptions, is that we don't know why people say no to us. It doesn't necessarily a self-reflection that we have to own, right? It's
right.
just, and I think it's just more obvious sometimes to us because we're putting ourselves out there in a greater way. But anytime that we're out in the public or we're at an event or a restaurant, wherever, it's happening all the time. We're just not as deliberate about noticing it. Not
Absolutely.
everyone's correct.
And we can't take it to heart, right? Which is what I did, as I took it to heart. And and then you kind of like, they don't like me. They don't think that I'm, whatever. You assume all kinds of stuff. And I just kind of took that assumption realm right out of my vocabulary during the process and just kept doing what I was doing. And, I knew that there was going to be people that were going to say yes. And I just thought I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and keep asking people. And here we are today.
I love that message because I think that's true for everything that we do in life is that we just
Yeah.
have to keep doing what we're doing, whether
Yep.
it's our work that we enjoy doing, whether it's putting ourselves out there, networking, whatever it is basically have the resilience and don't give up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Keep at it. Keep plugging away. And if you again, like I said, if you have a backing and a good network around you that surrounds you, you can't. I will see. You can't lose.
Mm. Well, I know your podcast has so many amazing different guests. You have such a variety, and I know they're always filled with so much insight. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on, I'd say LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. So it's Andrew and it's Stoute, Stoute. You'll see my logo of the podcast, so you can't miss it. It's Let's Be Diverse, and that's probably the best place to reach out and to say hello. And I love having conversations with people. Jessica will know I love to talk with people, get to know them. And I think it's super important to get to know people and remember the little things of people, of what's happening or what's going on, not just in their professional lives, but their personal lives as well. I think it's super important. And even if it's just a little thing, they're going to say, wow, you remembered that. That's pretty cool.
Well, we'll definitely put all of that information in the notes so that they can find you. But I've really enjoyed our conversation. I feel like it's gone by very quickly. But thank you so much for sharing everything in relation to, I think, the HR world and what it is that inspired you about that. I think it's a topic that more people need to hear about. And thank you for your insights.
You're very welcome, and thank you for taking the time to have me on. It was an honor to be on your podcast and a guest, and it's an honor to have conversations with you. And I look forward to all the conversations we have in the future.
Yes, me too. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Hello You Show. It's been a pleasure to have you with us on this journey today. If you found value in our conversation and want to support the show, Please take a moment to like, follow, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd also deeply appreciate it if you could leave us a review. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also enables others seeking inspiration and authenticity to discover our community. Until next time, keep embracing your story with purpose.